You know how we started HaveYouPlayedThis.com like a week ago, and your idea is for the videos is to largely use it to review games and preview games and just promote games by other people in general. Yeah?
Yeah, provide like a platform for people to find new games.
Well, what if I have an idea, right? Okay. So we said, I don't know if we've said this publicly, but internally we've said that bi-weekly videos is the goal, but it'd be nice to do more. Yeah, that's also true?
Of course, yeah. I mean, it'd be great.
What if I said it might be easier to meet that weekly goal of making videos if on the weeks where I'm not talking about other people's games, I bring back a little something called Designing a Tabletop RPG with Adam Bell.
Okay. That might be a good idea.
Does that sound alright?
Yeah, I think that's...
You mean like the videos you made back in like December 2020?
Yeah, that's right. The series that we did on my personal channel, on your personal channel?
Our channel.
Our personal channel?
Yeah, our channel.
Where we kind of designed a game from the ground up and fizzled out, of course.
Well, it turned into Reliance.
We did stop that at some point.
What if... Are we thinking the bell hack?
I'm thinking... Yeah, the bell hack is going to be too big. Let's keep it small. Let's go with Promise the Moon. Designing a tabletop RPG with Adam Bell. Designing a tabletop RPG with Adam Bell. Oh yeah. HaveYouPlayedThis.com brings back an old series from Adam Bell called Designing a Tabletop RPG. Join Adam as he designs a brand new game called Promise the Moon. Sci-fi role-playing on the independent moon. Let's see what that looks like together, shall we? HaveYouPlayedThis.com. That's right. Welcome to Season 2 of Designing a Tabletop RPG. I'm going to be designing an RPG. We're starting in a little different place this time, and... officially now, I think I will stop referring to the previous series and tell you what's going on here. I'm going to be using this as kind of a live design devlog type deal. I think I may or may not be doing stuff off camera and then catching you up in future episodes, but everything I do on this series will be live design. Like, it's going to be me actually just sitting here and thinking through what the game that I'm working on is going to be like. So I think we could start with a brief pitch on what I have right now. I'm not going to get fully into like the lore that I have on this yet. Maybe that'll be episode 2. But I do want to get to what I want to be doing with this game. So this is a game that is going to be based on... I'm basically making a hack of a game that I'm not finished of, which itself is a hack of a game I'm not finished with. So this is going to be like a brand new game based on like systems that I've been fiddling with before. So we won't get super deep into like core system design, core resolution mechanic design, but we will get into what does that system look like in a new setting and and I'll go over like what all we have. Yeah, what do we have? What is this? It's a game called Promise the Moon. It is going to be a game set on the moon. A moon which had been settled by the Apollo 11 mission. It was not just a simple plant a flag and get out of there. Obviously, they did more on that mission than just plant a flag. But it is not... The Apollo mission was not one where it was just to visit the moon. It was one where where they set up shop. And this whole world that started with a game of grasping nettles with a few friends of mine. Hello, Ryan, Tath, Gavo, and Jigs. If you're watching this... making a game because I want to play it with you for the assassination mission. We'll get to that. So what does this game need to be able to do? One, it needs to be able to do kind of a combat-y sort of thing, because the very first mission, and the mission that this game is being designed specifically for, is one in which the player characters are trying to assassinate the President of the Moon. And the President of the Moon has an exosuit called Even the Man in the Moon is Crying, and... So, like, it needs to be able to do combat either in and out of an exosuit, but, like, I'm not super interested with this design in, like, a tactical combat, so it will be more in the lines of, like, a fight in Blades in the Dark or other, or Apocalypse World games where it is very, very narrative forward. another thing that this game needs to be able to do is I want to bring in the players on some faction level play, stuff that maybe GM prep usually is, but also still leave room for the GM to be doing standard GM stuff, coming up with secrets, doing prep, and surprising the players, but also giving a lot of leeway for the players themselves to surprise the GM and put things into the game that will cause a fucking big mess for them. So, what is that going to look like? I'm not sure. This game, because the setting started with a Grasping Nettles game, I almost want to hack Grasping Nettles into this GM'd game where we will have like the normal player facing, the characters going on adventure, normal tabletop RPG GM thing, and then maybe a zoom out to something similar to how Legacy Life Among the Ruins 2nd edition zooms out to this faction level play where the players are being these factions. But I think what I want to do with that is actually so the players are characters, but the characters, I think the player characters and the player factions are decoupled. In Legacy, a lot of the complexity comes from the fact that you're cycling in and out of these this faction-based play and then zooming into character-based play, and each player's character is based on a faction. Each player's character comes from a faction that they control, which means each player also needs to make characters that relate to everybody else's faction, because otherwise you have to come up with a reason why these opposing players that are important members of these factions are so opposed. So I think with this, I do want to do like a faction turn, a faction level experience where you can like advance things in the world, but I want to do it in such a way that isn't quite as cognitively demanding on the players, because I want it to be it's going to be decoupled from the players. It'll just be like things were happening and then we zoom back in on something interesting that the party is interested in, and then things are happening back and forth. So those are my goals. I don't know how much of that was understandable. We'll see when I edit it together. And then I think today, also in this video, I want to do a little bit of thinking to like do something for the end of this video on like the structure of play. So we've got a few things to grapple with, right? There's this faction level play, and then there's adventure. We'll call it adventure for now. I'm sure I would like to come up with a better word than adventure, but we'll call it adventure, and that consists of kind of individual things. We've got social stuff. Definitely want to have a lot of wheeling and dealing and talking to people and stuff like that supported by the game. We've got action. We've got recovery. And actually, let's extend action. In action, we've got exosuits. So yeah, we've got the faction level play and then the like party adventure. Which actually, let's, instead of calling this party adventure, we'll call this character level play. And so we kind of zoom back and forth between this and this. This might seem similar to Blades in the Dark's narrative structure of you've got the job, you've got downtime, you've got free play, you've got the job, downtime, free play. The closest thing to downtime, I think, will be this recovery step within the character level play. Recovery is going to be stuff like, and here we can even just start writing it down. Like, what is recovery? Recovery will be, quote-unquote, healing stats. It will be mending items. It will be just like the character at rest. not much interesting. Now, well, or not much traditionally interesting stuff happening. I think is what I'll say. Because I think this stuff could be really interesting. I mean, there are entire games about kind of being at rest. I'm thinking of games like Stew Pot, where it is a game about you're just running a tavern because you've retired from your adventuring life. That's not traditionally interesting, but it's super interesting. Even a lot of the Forged in the Dark style downtime stuff, not traditionally interesting, but when handed to the right group can become very interesting. So this is what the recovery is. What is social? Social is going to be things like, just like social encounters. When I mean encounters, I mean just like interacting in a social manner where there are stakes involved. If you are hanging out with your friend and there's like no stress and you don't have to get anything done, that's probably recovery. If you're meeting somebody new and trying to establish a relationship, that's a social encounter. And then you've got action. So action is where like the traditionally interesting stuff happens, to go back to those words. That's where you've got battles, you've got heists, you've got sneaking into places, you've got assassinations. That's action. And then the exosuits, action's action. I don't think I have to write anything for that. That's what role-playing games are really good at. Exosuits, you've got it's action plus. So I'm imagining you've kind of got a character sheet that covers your recovery, your social stuff, and your action stuff, kind of all in the same mechanical framework. Probably going to take a few notes from the way Beam Saber handles the mechs, in that it is basically another character sheet that kind of complements your character sheet, and it's got all these other little subsystems that reflect the main systems but are somewhat different. This section, this character level play area, is what you see the most in role-playing games. So many of them have them. So many are focused on characters doing things. GM tells you what to do. So the GM's role in character level play is very traditional. It is very adjudicating things that are happening in the world, surprising the players with new events, reacting to the players' things and feeding it back to them in unexpected ways, and driving the story forward and playing NPCs. The faction level play is, well, for one, it's something I didn't expect to be talking about with this game. Like, I think last night when I was thinking about doing this video, I was like, ooh, what if this game kind of hacked Grasping Nettles a little bit, because it is a game that emerged from Grasping Nettles in that collaborative thing? What if it sort of gave that back in the actual play, so that even when this goes beyond my group, which has a very strong understanding with this world, that we are playing different games in the same world, but we all kind of own the narrative, how can I impose that essentially onto any group that plays this game? How can I make any group that plays this game recognize that everybody shares the world and the responsibilities for world building and thinking about what else is happening beyond the character level play? So I think we can quickly jot a few things down here. This could probably be a whole video in and of itself, and honestly likely will be. But if my first impression is to kind of hack Grasping Nettles, if you don't know, Grasping Nettles is based on kind of this rondel mechanic from board games, and we'll just sketch out a rough one here. So something like this, we could even say, yeah, that looks fine, whatever. Maybe cut this one in half. So in Grasping Nettles, we've got a rondel like this one. And are we focused on that? So in Grasping Nettles, we've got a rondel like this. I call it the wheel in that game, because nobody knows what a rondel is. Rondel? I don't know. Who knows how you're supposed to say it? And it's seeded with different actions. And so I could see one of two ways for this to be useful in faction level play. One is either to pull from games like Stars Without Number or other things that have a very distinct faction turn where factions are just doing different actions, So that is one option. Let's just write it. So option one is to seed the static wheel with like built-in actions. This faction is doing this action. This faction is doing that action. This faction is claiming territory this turn. This faction is advancing their projects. That would take a lot of me sitting down and just really trying to think about what would be interesting to feed back into character level play from the factional perspective, and why it would be interesting for the players to be in charge. The other option would be a dynamic wheel that is seeded by the players and the GM. So instead of just being like, this space is always this action, it could be like, oh, now our campaign, we've successfully assassinated President West. And so, like, we can remove the assassinate President West marker. We can remove the protect President West marker and replace them with new plot points that have come up, and have these different faction pieces kind of land. So I'm imagining there are different faction pieces. So let's use these. We've got faction O, faction E, faction Y. So yeah, let's say that this right here, this big space, let's go back to before the assassination, because that's what's present in my mind. This is just a space that the plot point is the assassination plans against the president of the moon. And so maybe we do this faction turn, and I'm player A, and I don't know if we're rolling dice in this like we do in Grasping Nettles, but let's say I move my piece to here. That is indicating that faction A, whatever faction that is getting themselves involved in that plot point. Whether they're helping or hindering the assassination, they're getting involved. And let's say another player is E, and they're like, oh, they're also doing that. Player O is like, no, my faction is coming up here to deal with the fact that the Nightfall ship launched the special life-lengthening minerals on accident / by an act of sabotage into space, and so they're going there. They're going to start thinking about that and trying to fix that. And we'll say faction Y, they're just trying to maintain their power on the moon. So like we'll say maybe that action is the ongoing plot point that that the forces of planet Earth are impinging their will even heavily on the moon, and this is them being like, no, we're pushing against that. So this is kind of what I'm thinking. And then maybe as the campaign goes on, like I'm player E in my faction, the Moonborn have gotten pretty strong, so I actually have 2 tokens now, and so the Moonborn can focus on 2 different things. And then, I don't know, so maybe the idea here is that there is a player piece as well, and once everybody is gone, the players collectively decide, okay, where are we going? And maybe they have to, they decide, no, the players collectively decide, where are we going, what are we dealing with? And if they go here, that means the character level play, because they've landed their piece here, the character level play, when we shift back to that, we're going to zoom into that action, and that is what their characters are up to. So it's that would kind of encompass the players doing a little bit of planning, a little bit of, what are we going to do next session, would be like the very end of this faction level play, placing their token onto something. Yeah. That's kind of where I'm at. I kind of want to make this very engaging, but like lightweight enough that you can just zip through it. If you want to, fun enough that even if you have a group that's not interested in the players having a say in this can still be a tool used by the GM to prep just by themselves. flexible enough, because a big thing whenever I design games lately is I always want to give players a way to skip parts of your game that they don't care about. So I think making this sort of separate enough from the character level play that like this bubble is a complete game as is, and then adding this is super fun for people like me that love when everybody's getting involved in that, but also detachable enough that a GM could just play it by themselves, because fuck the rules. I do make the rules, but you don't have to follow them. Whew. That's going to be it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this, like, thinking out loud about what this game's going to look like. I really expected to do character playbook stuff, but I couldn't stop thinking about this faction thing. And so that's what this video turned into. Tune in for the next one. I do hope the next video that I release on Have You Played This will be about other people's games, but this is a lot easier for me to just like sit down and do without much thinking beforehand. If I'm going to cover other people's stuff, I want to do it thoughtfully and nicely, and this is a good way to just make some videos when I'm not feeling like I can really engage with that kind of stuff. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Head over to haveyouplayedthis.com or haveyouplayedthis.com/donate to throw us a couple of bucks for this kind of video and help us do this thing more long term as life goes on. Yeah. Thank you. Goodbye. Designing a tabletop RPG with Adam Bell. Designing a tabletop RPG with Adam Bell. Oh yeah. This has been a production of HaveYouPlayedThis.com. Head on over to HaveYouPlayedThis.com/donate to give us a couple of bucks for this kind of work, and also to see more in the future. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back. Subscribe to the channel. Tune into some of the other shows. I don't know. Catch the news. You know. I'd be shocked if anybody actually hears this part, but how's it going? You know, this video's long been over, but I guess it's still going for some reason. Yeah, I guess that'll be it. I guess we'll get out of here.